Okay, hi. Welcome to Her Legal Lens. I'm Amber Cohen,
And I'm Kellie Sanders.
and we are here to talk and give a breakdown of the state of Hawaii versus Gerhardt Konig. And the case, State of Hawaii versus Gerhardt Konig, is an interesting one that comes out of Oahu. And the charge is second-degree attempted murder, where the victim in the case is Gerhardt's wife, Arielle Konig. The location of the incident was a hike in Pali Puka Trail on March 24th, 2025. And so who are the people? How did we get here? Basically it's a birthday hike between husband and wife. They find this trail, they go on a hike. It's supposed to be this love-filled, beautiful day. He wrote her a beautiful birthday card, gave her a love note, and then a woman screaming that come to rescue her on a narrow cliffside, and where she then, Arielle states that Gerhardt Konig attempted to murder her, tried to push her off the cliff, and held her down and hit her over the head with a lava rock. And so, Kellie, when you first heard of the facts, on this case, what was your reaction? What was your immediate reaction?
So I think my initial reaction was skewed perhaps by how something got portrayed in the media about this case, which was that I just remember hearing that that this doctor had planned this trip and that he had attempted to use a syringe to sedate her first before or put some kind of drugs in her before trying to push her off the ledge. And I think that hearing about the syringe really kind of colored my thought process. Like, who in the world would like have a syringe in their pocket while they're going hiking? And I think that the way the testimony developed, though, is that that syringe was just found was found, not just found, but he did have a syringe, but it was in his medical bag. So I don't think that necessarily the way the facts came out at trial about where that syringe was found necessarily coincided with how I feel this case got blown up in the media. Uh, but this is a more of an interesting scenario than most cases that we follow, right? Because we have a live victim, and we actually get to hear from her. So it really turned it into a he said, she said, and no more so than the fact that the defense's entire theory of defense is that he acted in self-defense and that his wife attacked him first. So makes it a true he said, she said case.
So Gerhardt and Arielle Konig, by any outward measure, are high achieving couple. He was a board certified anesthesiologist. She's a nuclear engineer. They moved to Maui. They had two young children, and underneath the surface of this marriage, there was some pretty significant issues going on. In the months leading up to this incident, Gerhardt discovered that Arielle was having, at a minimum, an emotional affair with one of her coworkers. The couple entered into counseling. Arielle described the relationship as improving. However, there was lack of intimacy and some serious lack of trust when it came to Gerhardt and Arielle. Gerhardt had a very different experience during those months that we find out at trial, in between the time that he learned of the affair to the time of the incident on May 24th, 2025. It sounds like he was investigating the relationship, even going to the point of creating a LinkedIn account to reach out to the coworker's spouse or significant other, in order to advise her of the relationship between Arielle and this coworker. So this is someone, who was obviously stewing in this issue, and meaning Gerhardt, of this affair, basically. And so for relationship context, from a legal perspective, I mean, what do you think, as far as the prosecution is concerned, why they are starting to lay out their case like this?
So I think that as far as the prosecution is concerned, right, they're going to allege that this affair is what made him jealous. It's what, like you said, he was stewing on this, and that in their eyes, this was a premeditated plan, that he found this hiking trail intentionally, that he brought the medical bag with the syringe, and that this was, an attempt to potentially murder her as opposed to getting a divorce. On the other hand, the criminal defense attorney and me and the attorney that's handled multiple many divorces, I'm like, also, what would really benefit wife in a future divorce but having her husband convicted of attempted murder? So I'm sure there's some element where the defense is going to try to tie some of those pieces together to claim that this was, her attempt. Although I will say from his testimony, uh, I don't think you could make the same argument that it was some premeditated attempt on her end, um, to, to plan this out to gain some type of advantage. What about you?
Well, I think that I think the defense did, and they were able to get out that Arielle was going to be seeking full custody, and potentially the marital home. So if that's true, if both of them know that the marriage is going south and they're both sort of vying for the same positions, um, I suppose she could have, I mean, we just dealt with Corey Richens, right? So, I mean, she
Right,
could
that's
have,
where my mind went.
I know. I mean, hey, um, but we have a few other sort of facts in this case that, differ from the Corey Richens case. Like you said, we have a live victim, alleged victim. And so, Arielle obviously takes the stand, and we'll hear from her. But what's interesting too is that there's additional witnesses that sort of assist in this case. And actually, it opens up, I believe, with the third party witnesses. So, unrelated third parties that are on the Pali Puka Trail. And the Pali Puka Trail is considered a narrow hiking path in Oahu's. Now, have you been to Oahu?
I've never been to Hawaii. I know you have. Have
Yeah.
you hiked this trail?
No, I have not hiked Pali Puka Trail. But I will say that a lot of the trails in Oahu, because it's volcanic and, high mountains, I think to me, they're all sort of scary and they all have cliff sides. But it's definitely one of the more, it's more above moderate. I would say it's a difficult trail. And, he testified, because we'll learn, but he testifies and talks about why he picks this trail, why it's a good trail for them. Needless to say, there was not that many people on the trail, and I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah, so we did hear from two independent witnesses during this trial. On day 3 of the trial, we heard from a witness, Amanda Morris, and she testified that she heard screaming when she was approaching the scene and that she identified the defendant as being on top of the victim and that he was actively striking her with the rock. So you do have the witness who saw him on top of her striking her. She also identified him, the victim is covered in blood, and that she was calling for help. But it did come out that that witness does not know how the altercation began and didn't see how it started. And then on day 4, we also heard from Sarah Buchenbaum, I believe that's how you say that. And she essentially corroborated Amanda Morris's testimony, also observed the ongoing assault, confirmed that the defendant was in the dominant position over the victim. She, though, testified that she did not observe any syringe or witness, similar to the first witness who testified, did not see how the altercation began. So basically, you do have two witnesses who testify that they see the defendant on top of her. She's covered in blood and she is screaming for help as he's actively hitting her with a rock.
So immediately, obviously, that's bad for Gerhardt, right? I mean, he's on top of her. She's got blood all over her and blood on him from this altercation. And, immediately that's bad for him. I do think that they obviously hear the screaming. I think it does take some time for first responders to get there. And so, Arielle's main I think that it hinges on three different things, right? She says, one, he tried to push her off the cliff. Two, he tried to stick her with a syringe and kill her potentially. And three, he hit her head with a rock. And so those are the three. The jury really probably only has to find one of those in order to convict him of attempted murder, right? They don't need to find all three, but she's giving the jury the story of three different ways that he's attempted to kill her while on this hike. So the hikers that come across them and hear her scream and try to rescue her, essentially, names it and tells them, I need help. She's screaming. By the time they get over there, they see him on top. I think that the jury, because they're third parties, that's impactful, especially when, we hear, from Arielle giving that essentially the same story. The issue I have,
But he doesn't deny that though,
right?
right?
The issue I have, and we're gonna get into it, is that nobody ever finds a syringe. There is no syringe, and so I know that the state, well, you can talk about this, how they're handling where the syringe went, but I think the state is saying, in essence, he had the opportunity to clean it up, right? Like, so he grabbed it, I don't know, discarded it somewhere else. I don't know if that was possible.
A question, right? How, where, if you're in a struggle actively on top of her with a rock, beating her with a rock, where did the syringe go in this? Did he tuck it away in a pocket? That's a lingering question for me.
Yeah, I think she deals with that a little bit in that she says she sees it out of the corner of her eye. Like, I think she says to the left. I'm not 100% sure. Well, I know she does talk about it. And so, and that in essence, that this hiking trail is wide enough so that it could have not fallen over it didn't go over the hill because they never located any type of syringe. But she doesn't testify or say that he ever stopped and was like looking. I mean, she says he ran away. So
I think that's what the witnesses testified
and
too,
that's what
that he
and
folds.
exactly. So, so that's an issue for me. I feel like that's an issue. But again, the jury doesn't have to find that he did all three. They only have to find that he did one of those. So, but does it discredit her enough to, if you don't believe her there, then do you believe her with everything else? So
If you don't believe that she saw a syringe,
yeah,
can you believe the rest of her testimony as a juror? I think that's a live question, right? Like, if you believe that she's either misstating facts, made something up that she didn't, that she saw something that wasn't actually there, they could even find, right, on a self-defense case that maybe she misunderstood his actions and then started getting aggressive back with him, and that it was basically two people who mistrusted each other, who thought the other was starting a fight and trying to hurt them. I think that it could be, if the jury doesn't believe that there was a syringe used, I think that's going to be a huge hole for her credibility in the prosecution's case.
yeah. Well, the prosecution came out swinging with it because they're going to use that for first, for premeditation, sort of, that he had that with it to sort of sedate her or take her down in order to potentially get her off balance and push her down the mountain potentially. So they need that to show that there was some premeditation here, and this wasn't just some sort of battle, some emotional battle. All right. So, what happens next? The
Well, do you
son.
want to show us a little bit of Arielle's testimony?
Oh, you want me to show you Arielle? Yeah. So Arielle. All right, everyone, hold on. While you're here, though, if you want to like and subscribe, so we're getting fancy, everyone. All right, let's see. So I think. Oh no. Hold on.
To the photos you mentioned later.
Sure.
So did you take any other photos on the way down?
Yes, right at that cliff. When I had come out of the tree and when we had walked to that cliff area, Gerhardt said, let's take a selfie with this as the backdrop. So we would be standing with our backs to the cliff, taking a photo.
Before you took that selfie, or before the defendant asked to take that selfie, did you notice anything about the defendant's attention?
Yes, he was very aware of where I was, where my feet were, where he was, and where the trail was. I felt like he was often looking at my feet and just very spatially aware of where I was on the trail.
Did you ever take that selfie?
We did. It wasn't quite as close to the edge as he wanted. I was standing from that photo. You can see there's a pine tree, and I was holding onto a branch of that because I was just uneasy that close to the edge. And we did take a selfie, but I held onto that tree.
Okay. Do you still have access to that selfie?
I don't.
What happened after you took the selfie while you were holding onto the tree?
I just asked him to move down the trail a little bit so that I could get past without having to go near the cliff.
And then how did the defendant react to that?
He was a little like, okay, and then he moved a few paces away.
Okay. So after the defendant moved down the trail a few paces away, what did you do?
Then I walked to him. So he was then facing me and the cliff, and I walked up to him. And again, everything was normal. I walked up and just kind of like brushed my hands against his shoulders, like kind of like a little hug.
Okay. As you had your hands against his shoulders, where was the defendant facing?
He was facing the cliff, facing me. My back was to the cliff, and he's facing me at the cliff.
And how far behind you was the cliff?
Feet, 10 or less.
Excuse me, I couldn't hear that.
10 or less feet.
Right. So, okay, after this happens, after you get to where the defendant is on the trail, what happened next?
When I walk up to him, then he grabbed me really forcefully by my upper arms, and he said, I'm so sick of this shit. Get back over there. And he starts pushing me back towards the cliff.
While the defendant was grabbing you and pushing you, what did you do?
I was surprised. It felt almost like he was kidding at first, and I was like, what are you doing? But he had grabbed me really hard and was moving me. So we kind of wrestled a little bit, and I threw myself onto the ground because there's a lot of trees and shrubs there so that I could hold on.
As you threw yourself to the ground, how did the defendant respond?
Well, he got on top of me, and he was kind of trying to pull me, and we're wrestling, and he ended up straddling me, so he had his legs on either side, kind of across my waist.
On March 24, 2025, how tall were you?
About 5'6".
And how much did you weigh on that day?
About 145 pounds.
Okay. And on that date, how tall was the defendant?
About 5'10".
And how much did he weigh?
Maybe 165 pounds.
Okay, and then you said straddling. Can you describe what that looked like for us?
Sure. I'm laying on my back, and he's on top of me with kind of like one leg on either side across my waist, facing me.
Once the defendant was on top of you, what did he do next?
So he was first trying to pull me, trying to get me closer to the cliff, and again, I could kind of hold on to the roots and stuff that were around us, and then he had a backpack that he was hiking with, and he, like I said, he's on top of me, and he had a syringe in his hand, and he says, hold still, and I see the syringe, and I just kind of like bat it away from us both.
Okay. When you first saw that syringe in his hand, did you actually see where it came from?
I didn't see where it came from, no.
All right, and you said you were able to bat it. Do you know where it went?
It just fell on the ground sort of near us. It would have been to my left because I could still kind of see it in my periphery as I was trying to make sure it wasn't going to get grabbed again.
And then could you describe what you remember about the syringe, what it looked like?
Sure. It was a clear syringe with a blue piece, maybe blue plunger, I guess is what that's called.
Once you were able to bat the syringe away onto the ground, what did the defendant do next?
So he had taken his backpack off, and it was on the ground to his left, so kind of to the right side of my body here. And he was digging in that with his left hand, and then kind of holding me down with his right hand. And I'm screaming, and I'm saying, "What are you doing? Get off me!" And he's saying, like, "You're done. I'm so sick of your, so done with you." And I'm trying to kind of protect myself and get out of there. But also he's gripping his hand closed really hard. And there's a vial in his hand, so I was trying to pry his hand open so I could grab that vial out.
Okay. Which hand did you see the vial in?
The vial was in his right hand.
Okay. And did you actually get to see the entire vial?
No.
Okay. What part of it did you see?
I could see pieces of it because I'm trying to like pry his fingers off of it so that I can grab it and throw it.
Were you able to open his hand that was holding the vial?
Not enough to get the vial away.
All right. You mentioned the defendant was saying some things. Can you tell us what you remember he said as he was on top of you?
Yeah. I'm screaming, and he's telling me, "Shut up! Nobody's gonna hear you out here. Nobody's coming to save you." And I'm saying, like, "You can't do this. Everyone knows we're on a hike. They'll know this wasn't an accident, and our kids will be orphans. You'll go to jail, and I'll be dead. Like, you have to stop." And again, he's saying, like, "You're done. We're done with you. We don't need you anymore. You're done. You're done."
Did telling the defendant any of these things that you told him, did that get him to stop?
No, not really. And I had said, like, "Your mom just sent me a really beautiful text for my birthday. Like, your family will be upset if I die. You can't face our kids after this, you know." And he did seem at that point to, like, calm down a little bit. Like, it seemed like he took a deep breath and calmed down. And so I had this moment where I was like, okay, this is the break. Like, I can get out. And then he just starts hitting me with a rock.
Okay. I'm going to backtrack for just a moment, Arielle. As the defendant was on top of you, as the defendant was saying things, and as you were saying things back, were you trying to defend yourself physically at all?
Yes, and I'm screaming and trying to defend myself physically. So I think I bit his forearm at one point, trying to, that would have been his right forearm. And then I was also squeezing his testicles with so I had my right hand, trying to squeeze his testicles to get him to get off of me.
Okay. And was that, when you were doing those things, was that before or after he calmed down, as you just said?
That was before he calmed down.
Okay. So what happened, you said, after the defendant calmed down?
Oh, well, it felt like he calmed down because it looked like he took a deep breath. And again, I was screaming, and so he's covering my mouth and stuff, and then we have this moment of, like, it seems like he takes a deep breath, and then he just starts hitting my face and my head with a rock.
Did you see where the defendant got the rock from?
I didn't see where he got it from, but, like, spatially, he was, like, reaching up around this area of my head. So my impression was that there was a rock on the ground near my head that he was able to grab.
Were you just holding your hand around the left side of your head?
Yes. Sorry.
When the defendant was hitting you with the rock, did you say anything?
I just started screaming because in my mind, he was trying to knock me unconscious to get to be able to drag me over the edge. So I just was screaming then as much as I could.
Did the defendant respond to what you were screaming?
No.
Did anybody other than the defendant respond to what you were screaming?
Yes. So I'm screaming, and I do think I was saying something like, "Please help. He's trying to kill me." You know, I'm hoping somebody can kind of hear that. And I, at some point, hear a woman's voice say, "We're here. We're calling 911. We're here, we're calling 911.
Okay. So after you hear that woman's voice, what happens?
He just kind of like, Gerhardt just kind of froze and knelt back away from me. And I just crawled away really slowly. And again, he seemed just like frozen. And then I was yelling to the voices I heard, "Are you still there? Are you still there? Don't leave me." And I couldn't hear anybody calling anything back. So I just kept crab walking away. Like I'm on my butt, kind of like scooting. And I just kept going and got to like a lower part of the trail. The women were down there, and one of them was on the phone with emergency personnel.
As you crab walked away, did the defendant follow you?
No.
So as you crab walked away, did you see what the defendant did?
He just, like I said, he seemed frozen. He just kind of stood up and was staring. And then I didn't see where he went after that. He didn't follow me when I went down to those women.
What happened when you got to the two women?
When I got to them, we were just trying to figure out how to get out of there as quickly as we could. And so they tried to stand me up to see if we could walk down with me kind of draped over them to get through, but I couldn't stand. Excuse me. That was just like an unstable. So one of them went behind me and was kind of sweeping to make sure he wasn't coming after us, visually scanning to make sure he wasn't coming after us. And then the other one was in front leading us. And one of the women had like a large metal water bottle, and she had that in her hand, and she was like, "This is the only weapon I have." But then I crab walked or kind of scooted down the whole trail with them on kind of either part to try to keep us safe.
Okay. Well, lot to unpack there.
What's your first reaction?
So I recognize that sometimes I have a bias, I guess, because, first off, I believe her. She appears to be credible, but the story to me doesn't make sense. In some way. Now, granted, when you're in combat like that, which I would consider combat, your memory's going to be off, right? There's no doubt. So some things are going to really stand out and some things aren't going to make sense. So that might be just what we're picking up. And that is, the jury gets to figure that out. But so for example, when she says she kind of leapt to the ground to grab the shrubs, and then it didn't make any sense to me. But of course, I'm not on the trail. We don't really have a photo of it. We don't really know. I'm having trouble visualizing that. But when we hear from him, his side of it is that she pulled him down to try to, wrestle him down. So, in not so many words, but so I think that's interesting. And this whole thing about the syringe, I think it just really, again, I think she sort of says, "I see it, but I'm not sure."
Yeah, the part that I thought was odd, and for the most part, I do think like she sounds credible. It sounds believable. You always question, right? Like in the moment, are your senses as accurate as they normally would be when you're not like pumping full of adrenaline. But the two things, one, I thought it was an odd commentary to say that he was very aware of like where their feet were on the trail. I don't know. I do a little bit of hiking, not a whole lot, but I feel like I am always really focused on my feet when I am hiking, mostly because I'm terrified of tripping because I'm very klutzy. But I just feel like that seemed like something really normal, and it's also kind of something odd to notice about somebody else.
Right.
And two, when she's describing the attack and she mentions it, he pulls out the syringe out of one hand, but he's also holding her down with the other and with his right hand, and then the vial is also in the right hand. There just seems like a lot in hands that are also being used to hold her down. And my other initial reaction was, oh my goodness, this is also like, this attack sounds really long given the like intense amount of conversations that they're having. Like he's saying this and I'm telling him, I just wrote this note and we have our kids and our family. Like there's a lot being said.
Yeah, she's like, your
While she's also
mother.
yelling
Yeah.
for help.
Yeah, right.
So it makes it seem like, and I don't know if it could have been an intentional strategy for the prosecution to really kind of slow it down, but it also to me, it also made it seem too long, like perhaps a little too long, maybe a little too much detail. Maybe the whole interaction just sounds a little bit longer when in reality it was probably a few seconds.
Right.
Which in one sense adds to the confusion of the moment. But I just felt like the way she's kind of slowed it down gives it a little bit too much opportunity to see where there might be a hole or something.
Yeah, because he's got the syringe. She says she bats it away, and then next thing you know, he's got a vial, which I'm confused about what that means. Like, what does that mean? What is he doing with a vial? Like, I don't understand.
I'm not a serial killer, but if I'm bringing someone on a trail with a syringe full of drugs to sedate them, isn't the drugs already going to be in the syringe?
That's what I'm saying.
I crazy?
Yeah, like I don't think you're like sitting there
throws it off.
and then pulling it out and then
pump it and extract it out.
I'm gonna get the alcohol swab. We're gonna swab you.
Yes, hold on, hold still for a minute.
So I don't know.
The vial thing is also a weird detail.
Yeah, and I don't know, but she also again it doesn't seem like she's lying. Like I don't think she's lying. Right. It's just it doesn't make sense. So either he's really like out to lunch and this isn't premeditation because that's just dumb. Like how are you gonna have a vial and then be attacking her on top of her and trying to like plug it makes no sense. So
there's a lot happening.
And meanwhile, she is trying to push him off, hold his testicles, smack him in the face because she smacked him in the face. I mean, with a rock.
His forearm. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's total combat. Meanwhile, she's saying to him, your kids don't want to, they shouldn't be orphans. Your mother just, sent me this beautiful message. And I don't know. Like I'm struggling to understand if that violent of an attack is occurring, maybe that's how she has to appease him. Maybe that's how she has to calm him down is to try to get that break into that.
It makes it seem like such a long attack. Like, was the attack really this long where she's trying to calm him down? She's trying to appease him. She's also trying to scream for help.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's just, I get that that's the cycle that you would perhaps see in a situation where you're being held against your will. I don't know if that's everything that would be being said and trying to calm him down in the middle of a violent attack, like while the attack is actually physically happening. It just seems like a lot.
Yeah, and there's no violence in this relationship. I mean, this does not appear to be any kind of domestic violence of any kind. There's no alcohol or drug allegations. There's, nothing like that, except for obviously this affair, which is,
Hey, I mean, that can, we've seen it, right? That can be motive enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Gerhardt also has a son, Emil, who I think also provided some pretty powerful testimony at this trial. Was there anything else you want to talk about Arielle's testimony before we move on, though?
No, I think, that was really, I mean, that sets the stage. So right now with him and her, I mean, that's a he said, she said, except you now have the hikers. But then obviously next comes Emil.
Yes, and so Emil is actually Gerhardt's son, and so Arielle's not Emil's biological mother. So Emil is called by the prosecution to testify against his father. And I have a little clip of what he says. So he receives a call from his dad, which the prosecution essentially tries to classify through him as a confession. So let's hear what Gerhardt has to say about what his dad told him that day.
And did the defendant tell you anything during that call?
Yes.
What did the defendant tell you during that call, as close to word for word as you can remember?
That he would not be making it back to Maui. and to take good care of the younger kids, and that Ari, my stepmom, had been cheating on him, and that he tried to kill her.
Okay. That's a lot, but I'm going to break that
That's
down
a
a
lot.
little bit. You said the defendant told you he tried to kill Arielle, is that right?
Correct.
Did he tell you what happened to Arielle?
He did not.
Did he tell you where she went?
No.
Did the defendant tell you why he tried to kill Arielle?
No.
During this 10:42 a.m. call, did the defendant tell you anything about what he planned to do next?
During that call, the next plan that he said was to jump off the cliff.
And how did you react to hearing that?
I told him not to.
How did you react to the defendant telling you he tried to kill Arielle?
I don't remember what I said.
Do you recall what the defendant told you after he said he tried to kill Arielle?
Not directly after.
Okay. Did he say where Arielle went?
No, just away.
Well, what did he say about Arielle and away?
He said that she had gotten away, and that was all I heard about her location.
During this first call at 10:42 a.m., did you ask the defendant any questions yourself?
Yes. I asked what was on his shirt, because it looked like I saw splatters of something on his shirt, and he said, oh, it's just her, meaning Ari's, blood.
All right, so that was what Gerhardt's son testified to about his dad calling him after the altercation. What did you think?
Well, I mean, first of all, I think it's devastating for this kid to have to take the stand against his dad and his stepmom, who he did testify that he is now living with and lives with the little. So Ari and Gerhardt have two sons who I think are now 3 and 5. At the time, I think they were 2 and 4, roughly. And so emotionally devastating for this kid to, well, one, to have to take these calls from dad while this is gone on. And I think, I don't think this kid is not, again, I think he's telling the truth. I think he got 2 phone calls from his dad. What I do think is what the defense draws out in their cross is that he does embellish on direct in the sense that his story sort of broadened from when he was first interviewed initially right after. Although he does, I think, run across the street to the in-laws' house, so Ari's parents. So when this goes down, I think he says he goes across and tells her parents what has happened, according to these phone calls. So they're able to say, well, I think, but I think they're able to sort of confirm that they learn of this event through the son, is through the excited utterance. So I do think that that is something that confirms his story for the most part. The thing about, so if I'm on the defense, if I'm looking at this phone call and I'm going to sort of try to see how we can use it to show this wasn't, a premeditated attempted murder. One of the ways that he can try to reduce this charge is to prove that it was basically an emotionally disturbed moment of, not full on insanity, but it reduces it down to an attempted manslaughter versus an attempted murder, which is a significant change when it comes to sentencing potentially. So if he can use it to show that he's suicidal, he's he's clearly out of his mind at this point. He's made a phone call, and he's going to jump off the cliff. Then I think that could potentially show that extreme or mental breakdown that he is in. So for that, I do think it shows the emotional disturbance potentially. What I do also think for Emil is that he probably could have heard something similar, but because now he has Arielle's perspective infused in him, it has, sort of turned into something different. Because I'm thinking, okay, if I am Gerhardt and I've called my son and I'm like, oh my God, I just got in this huge altercation with my wife, and I did hit her with a rock. He's not denying.
And people saw me.
Yeah, he's
People
not.
saw me hit her with a rock.
Yeah, right. Like he's not denying that happened, but because he's like, I know I'm toast here. Like I'm done. Like this all looks really bad. I gotta call my kid, tell him I love him, and I'm just gonna kill myself because this is crazy. Like I don't know what the hell just happened. So it could have been that, and I'm not. And I don't even know. He doesn't deny. I don't think that he calls his son. So, again, it's just sort of like, how are we spinning the same facts?
It's the perception and the lens of which you view the evidence through, right? Like, I always go right to thinking, how is the defense going to use this? I suppose, I mean, you're right? It could look at it as a reduction if it's used to just show like passion in the moment, and this was a fight that escalated. But I think that given the self-defense theory that they are using, and what he testifies to, that she started the argument, that you could also argue that this phone call really was him saying, she was telling people I was trying to kill her. People saw me hitting her with a rock. Like, you're also freaking out, full of adrenaline. We're like just spitting out things to your son. I'm not coming home. They're gonna think I killed her. I'm just gonna go jump off a cliff. And I think that's how ultimately the defense is gonna use it, just given that they're going with the self-defense theory and not a passion in the heat of the moment theory to reduce the charge. So I think that you could, if you're a juror and you believe any of Garrett's testimony, you could analyze and filter that information through that perspective as well. Because I do think that it's important to remember that this Emil is living with Arielle. Everything that he's seeing now and everything that he's testifying to has all been filtered through his last year's experience and hearing other people's versions of what happened, hearing Arielle's testimony. And I'm sure that it's something that they've talked about. So it was very heartbreaking that he had to testify in general.
I mean, one of the things that that I've sort of thought about too is that, we have to remember that we're in Hawaii. We're in the island of Oahu, and they lived in Maui. They had just moved there. They were not there for very long. And I say this truthfully in the sense that, the native Hawaiians, generally speaking, I know I'm probably going to get some hate mail on this, but, have, there's some, I don't know what the best way to say this is, but it's like, he's not a local, right? He's not a native, Gerhardt. So when you're talking about jury of your peers, I don't know what this jury looks like. We haven't seen this jury. They could all be native Hawaiians. They could be people that have just implanted themselves for the last year or since COVID or, whatever. But when you are talking about who to believe and what to believe, it's possible that they're going to really look at the lens, not in support of Gerhardt, because, similar to a type of, I don't want to say it's racism, but, sort of that, like, you're an outsider, you're not an insider. So we're already going to be hypercritical of you. That it's possible that, that's all it takes, really. I mean, we know how juries are. And this is something that I think honestly, I think most Hawaiians would acknowledge that, the outsiders versus locals. And so, he's got an uphill battle. Now, notably, you can see that the prosecution is sort of, I don't know if he's a local, but there's just that interplay. And I don't know if you've noticed too, but it's definitely Hawaiian court. Like it's a different. Do you see it when you're watching the
A little bit, yeah.
questions? And it feels different in that court. I don't know, when the judges, although the judge did, I think he came across against the defense a little bit the last day on Friday, but very, very calm court, I guess is what I mean. Very, I don't know. Anyway, I digress. So the short story is, I think that the son really hurts Gerhardt's case. That's my short story. I think he's sympathetic.
There's an emotional pull there,
Yeah.
right? You're gonna,
Yeah. And
So-
not only that, but now you have all these witnesses that are supporting Arielle's side, right? So you have the son, you have the hikers, you have her, and then you have Gerhardt. And so, they're making their case.
So before we're going to show a clip of Gerhardt's testimony where he goes into how he claims his wife attacked him first. It is important to remember, I think, when we're talking about this case, is that we are saying this is a he said, she said, right? But inherently, I try to avoid saying that because it feels like such a burden shifting. This is not a civil case, right? This isn't a case where the jury, how it's supposed to work is that it's not a case where the jury says, well, we believe her a little bit more than we believe him, so we're going to side with her and he's guilty. The prosecution has a higher burden here. They have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he did not act in, first of all, that he attempted to commit the murder. It adds a next burden, and I don't know, and I will admit I did not research this for Hawaii, but if this was in Massachusetts, once the defendant brings up self-defense as an affirmative defense, the prosecution has another burden to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he did not act in self-defense. And while I don't know the exact wording that the judge will use in a jury instruction, I imagine it's something similar. The prosecution always has that burden beyond a reasonable doubt. So hopefully the jury also takes that to heart when they get their jury instructions, and that it's not just about who you believed a little bit more than the other, but really holding the prosecution to their burden and what they have to prove.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good point. And, it's something that when you see the defendant take the stand, that's always this concern, right? Is that the burden shifts, because then it's like, well, now he has to show he didn't do this. And it's like, no, he doesn't. However,
really, the prosecution is supposed to prove that that he's
however,
wrong.
he can give you enough to put some doubt in there to say, do you really truly believe that there is enough there? So, and that's obviously why he has to take the stand. So, which, you saw Corey, I hate to bring up Corey, but she didn't take the stand. And, you wonder if she had, would she have been able to save her skin or not? Here, these guys, these attorneys are saying, and it's his right to take the stand and tell the jury what happened. So
it's really hard to raise a self-defense claim without testifying. In order to get the jury instruction that you would really need, it's so hard to. You have to use extrinsic evidence, right? And there's really not, because the extrinsic evidence is the other witnesses that see him on top of her. So to really go with a self-defense theory, he really has to testify.
yeah.
In his own defense. I'm sure that was a question in their legal strategy. Do we go with self-defense and you have to testify, or do we try to go with heat of the moment, passion, reduction of this charge?
Crazy emotional disturbance. Yeah.
Right. So I have a little bit of Garrett's testimony for us to basically starting at the same moment where you started Arielle's testimony, where he's describing how they're going to take this altercation starts with the attempted selfie. So get that to the I have to get out of Garrett's. Sorry. That's technical glitch.
It's scary to see my face there big.
All right, and we're sharing sound. So this is Gerhardt Konig, the defendant.
Super happy and was trying to basically, get me to be in a better mood. And she was like, I'm going to climb this tree, take pictures of me in this tree. And so she handed me her phone and I took some pictures of her in the tree. And then after that, she said, let's take a selfie by the cliff's edge.
That was her idea.
Yes,
Okay. Did you guys take one?
we did.
And what happened after that?
Right after the selfie, I just remember kind of staying at the edge there and looking over the edge and just kind of still in thought about everything that had just happened and what's going on. And then I felt like a shove,
Okay.
and I was almost pushed over the edge.
Okay. You felt a shove. Okay. Who shoved you?
Ari did.
What did you do right after that?
Barely caught myself and turned around and looked at her and was like, what the fuck was that? Like,
Okay. Turned around and it was like what like was like kind of in shock, like what the fuck was that?
yes.
Okay. And then did you move towards her?
Yeah, I did. I was like, just asking her, like, what was that? And started walking towards her.
Okay.
Because at this point, she was like 5 or 10 feet away from me.
Okay. So you walked towards her, and you mentioned when you're walking towards her, where were your hands?
Out.
Okay. Now, did you get close to her?
Yes, eventually, yeah. Well,
And by the way, when you start walking towards her, is she saying anything?
not initially, but I turn around and I'm asking her, like, what the hell's, what the fuck just happened and what's going on? And as I'm starting to walk towards her, she starts yelling.
She starts yelling.
Yeah, help me, help me.
Okay. And then what happens?
And then I just keep walking to her, like, what are you doing?
Were you telling her, like, why are you screaming?
Yeah, what are you doing? And I get to her and I'm like, touching her, just putting my hands on her arms. And I was like, what are you doing? What's going on?
What happens then?
She keeps yelling and she kind of grabs my wrists and throws herself on the ground and pulls me down with her.
So now you guys are on the ground?
Yes.
Okay. When you're on the ground, what starts to happen?
She's holding on to me and I'm trying to figure out what's going on, but I'm also at this point trying to let go of, like, trying to get free because she's like actively holding on to me. Like she has her leg like wrapped around one of my legs and like is actively holding on to me and is yelling. And so I'm trying to, get free. And I get my one arm free and I try to use it to get my other arm free. And she grabs me by the testicles. And
Okay. Let me stop you there. Did you ever, in the course of this whole thing you described so far, ever try to pull her towards, push her off, or drag her towards the cliff's edge?
no, not at all.
Okay. So you're on the ground. She's kind of holding on to you. You guys are. Would you there's kind of like a scuffle going on?
Yes.
Okay. And her legs wrapped around you.
Yes.
You mentioned we got right up to the point where you said she grabbed your testicles. Is that right?
Yes.
How hard did she grab it?
I mean, this was, like,
Pretty hard.
she, like, was holding on to me by my testicles, basically, like, that hard.
Okay. Did she grab it and let go, or did she grab it and hold on?
She grabbed it and held on.
Now, what happens after she does that?
Then I try to free my testicles, and so I'm, like, thrashing with and I get both hands free, and I'm trying to get her to let go of my testicles, and then she hits me with a rock on the side of the face.
Okay. So she's holding on to your testicles. You're kind of focused on that, obviously, and then at some point while you're focused on that, you
And it happened all really fast.
Yeah.
But yeah,
That's
I mean,
I'm glad you raised that up. Was this like happening slowly, where you had
it
time
all
to
happened within, like, I mean, probably less than a minute, maybe
quickly?
slightly more than a minute, but I mean, 2 minutes or something.
But you weren't timing it.
From the moment that, like, we were on the ground and she was grabbing my testicles was like
It happened quickly.
everything after the grabbing of the testicles happened very quickly.
Okay. And you weren't timing it or anything.
No.
This is just your estimate. Okay. So now, she's holding on to you, she's squeezing your testicles, and you kind of dealing with that. And she's on the ground, and you're kind of on top of her.
Yes.
Okay. And you said then you felt you got hit with the rock.
Yes.
Where'd you get hit?
On the left side of my face.
How many times?
She kept doing it. The first blow she landed really well, and after that I was able to block
Okay.
fairly well. She did like land a couple more, but not as bad as the first one.
Does she still got your testicles?
Yeah, so she's like holding my testicle and just like
Okay.
hitting me like this.
And now do you stop dealing with your
I'm
testicles?
just
and you-
focused on the rock at this point.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Did it hurt when you got hit with the rock?
you did.
Could we publish what's in evidence as Exhibit D30, Your Honor?
Okay.
Okay. I think we got the flavor of his account of what happened. What were your thoughts on his testimony?
So I think that I mean, I don't know if this job's just getting harder, but I feel like he looks credible. Like I believe him. I don't know. Is he just a really good liar? I mean, he makes sense. His story makes sense. Like it's fast. It's moving fast. She's grabbing my testicles. Like she's hitting me in the head. And she's not as strong as him. They already pulled that out. He acknowledges that on cross. Like she's strong, you're stronger than her. So his hit may leave a bigger mark than her hit, but he absolutely says she hits him. He does have a bruise on the side of his face. The prosecution brings out at some point, well, look at her injury versus your injury. Obviously, there's a big difference here. But again, I don't think that is necessarily can say who started it or what was going on. I still don't really understand how this fight started. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. That is the one thing that,
If I'm a juror at this point, I'm thinking, I don't know that either one of these people know what happened. I think that they both might have thought the other one was like maybe one person tripped and kind of landed a hand on them or something happened and they're already in heightened emotional states because of this alleged affair, and maybe the thoughts of divorce are already circulating. And I don't know. To me, there's so many parts of their story that are so similar, about, grabbing the testicles and the use of the rock and sort of even the distances that they use to describe about how far they were away from each other. There's so many similarities that line up. It's the initial contact, right? And there's a part of me that wonders, are they both just mistaken over who started this? And it ended up in this massive altercation, both of them thinking that they were fighting for their lives. And if that's true, that's a not guilty.
yeah. I mean, he basically says he denies any syringe. He denies that he attacks her. He denies that he tries to push her off the cliff. He said, anything he did was in self-defense, claiming she, in essence, throws herself to the ground, tries to, throw him over. He did he did have some emotion on the stand. And he did say that he stayed on, I think on the trail afterward was suicidal, sort of, pacing back and forth, just really upset about what had just gone on. Did the prosecutor in the cross-examination went deep into motive evidence. So motive evidence through the the prosecution was asking him about, well, if it was so spontaneous, why were you researching, the coworker's wife? Why were you reaching out to the coworker's wife and creating these issues? Why were you researching Arielle's pay stubs in 22 and her tax returns and, all of these sort of financial issues that came up earlier. Why are you looking at your prior divorce file? I mean, they had all the metadata of all the files that he went into in like early hours of December 2024. Because this happened in March of 25. And so what both of them testified to is they last were intimate, they last had sex December 24th, 2024. And that's another issue that comes up between the two of them as to motive, is that she was denying him. She was not having sex with him. And so the prosecutors sort of brought that out too, is that, she wasn't meeting your physical needs. And he's, he denies that and says, well, we were working through our stuff. And I had, the prosecutor brought out that he had bought some self-help books on like how to sort of heal the affair. But really by healing it was she had to turn over every single piece of, anything private. There's no privacy. She's the wrongdoer. Therefore, she has to absolutely, succumb to any of his demands. And isn't that true? And he sort of denies all that. But the short of it is that if this was so spontaneous, why were you basically looking into all of this? And wasn't this really because, you didn't want to pay her if you got divorced. You didn't want to give her any money. You didn't want to pay child support. You had to pay child support for your son. You knew what that looks like. I think he said he paid his first wife $25,000 to $30,000 a year. At the time, he was making $250,000 a year or so. But they got through cross that he had just got an increase for his job as the anesthesiologist for the hospital in Maui. I think like between, I want to say $500,000 or $600,000. So he was going to have a huge increase of pay. And he kind of was like, I don't know. There's an equation for the child support. Like it is what it is. I would have paid it. Like it's not, and I don't know. I found his responses to make sense. Like, yeah, I mean, I paid child support before and you see my kid, like, I'm not going to not pay child support. But I don't know.
And I don't think he denies that they were having these marital problems, right? And I mean, this is definitely something where your Google searches are going to come back to haunt you one way or the other. He wasn't searching how to cover up a dead body, how to, what is the most dangerous hiking trail that you could fall from in Maui. They weren't in like ominous searches. To me, there's normal searches that you might look for and things you might be looking at when you're thinking, I might have to go down the road of divorce. What does that look like? What might my life? I mean, these are decisions that our clients who are getting divorced, the things that they think about before they ever even come to us or decide that they want to file. What does my life look like post-divorce? Can I do this? Financially, is this something we can do? But at the same time, like Arielle also, she was a professional. This wasn't like she was, if I'm not mistaken, she wasn't like a stay-at-home mom where he's going to have to be, fully supporting her lifestyle. They're both professionals with income. It's not, I think this whole like child support thing might be a little overblown as a motive, but I can see how they can add that to the other witnesses, to her testimony, and they stack piece by piece and they put the whole motive, opportunity, and what she says that he did that day.
Yeah, I mean,
out there, and ultimately the jury decides.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I feel like the financial piece doesn't really make sense to me. But the affair makes more sense. I do think she had left her job, or he asked her to leave her job because of the affair, because it was the man that I don't even know if it was physical. The emotional affair was with someone that she worked with. And so I think he had asked her to leave the job so that they could try to repair. And she was committed to that. So both of them agree that they were committed to sort of staying married. So again, that's the weird part for me. I'm like, why would he then just kill her? Not for the money. It doesn't make sense. But one thing that, I don't know if the defense really got this out, but the prosecutor in nauseam went through like, and then you went into this file, and then you went into her 2022, and then you went into her retirement, and then you went into this folder. And he's like, I don't really remember that, but I guess like if the metadata shows I was in that file, then I guess I was in there. Like, and one of the things that occurred to me is if he thinks she's having an affair and he's still suspicious, then he's just checking every file because maybe she's hidden.
Right, I'm checking bank records, credit card statements.
Yeah, like maybe, and not only that, but maybe it's like, how long has she been having the affair, right? Or maybe she has like current documents hidden in the 2022 file, right? Because that's obviously not that crazy when people are
Once
trying.
your trust is blown, you're kind of a free-for-all that you're going to start looking for this,
Yeah.
evidence. Like you said, the testimony, right, is that it's an emotional affair. Maybe he's looking to make sure that she's not, under exaggerating what happened and looking for, hotels or something like that on credit card statements, like you said, to see how far back this might be going. Like, is she telling me the truth about, the entire state of this alleged affair? So to me, not that abnormal, but I see how it adds to the just one more element to the prosecution's case. I'm not sure I'm sold on it.
Yeah, I mean,
We shall see.
I think she, obviously the other piece that the defense laid out there was I think it was a pathologist, or it was someone that basically was saying her injuries were not as bad as they looked, right? That it's kind of, the head is a, soft, I don't know, it bleeds a lot, but it wasn't really that bad,
Yeah,
right?
I mean, that's
I can't remember
one
that. I'm
thing
sorry.
about head wounds, they bleed a lot.
Yeah, and I'm trying to find the name of the doctor and I can't find it. But anyway, my notes, I've lost track of my notes. But the short of it is that I think that part of the evidence, I'm not sure how that's going to land with the jury, in the sense of like, well, okay, so her injuries aren't as bad, but, I don't know. How do you feel like the jury that might be offensive, like the jury might be like,
I mean, he's not denying that he hit her with the rock. Basically from the time of the initial shove pretty much forward, I think they mostly kind of agree on what happened. It's really just like, well, I get they don't agree on the syringe. He definitely does not say that he had the syringe, but there's large parts of their accounts that are nearly identical.
Yeah, and we know it's mutual combat. The question is, who started it? How did it end? And, I mean, and again, she claims she crab walked out of there. I don't know. That just, again, to me is odd. I mean, if he was really trying to kill her.
Yeah, but if she also has a head injury and she's bleeding, maybe she's not able to fully stand up.
No, but I'm saying if he was really trying to kill her, why didn't he just, if she was in that sort of state?
Well, now he knows there's witnesses there because the witnesses have said, we've got you, we're here.
Yeah, except
so he knows other people have seen him.
If he was, and again, if he was truly suicidal at that point, then, I don't know. I just, it's bizarre. Like if murder was really his goal, he had an opportunity and he didn't finish it. So I don't know.
He had a massive opportunity and I don't know, somehow it went horribly wrong.
Yeah.
And also, if he was bringing, I believe the testimony was that what was in the drugs that he had in the medical bag that they find are Proparol, which is the sedation drug that Michael Jackson died of. If your idea is you're going to throw her off a cliff, isn't that drug detectable?
Yeah.
And so she's going to be, her tox report's going to come back that she's full of this, the whole thing, that the entire premeditation part of this to me, and really the syringe just throws this whole thing sideways for me.
Yeah. So, because I'm not.
This case will go to the jury next week.
Yeah. The judge did say that the jury, I think there's no court tomorrow, correct? I think they're going in on Tuesday with closings. And they're going to be able to hopefully give the jury the charge. So the judge will be able to give the jury instructions. And I don't know, for our viewers at home, what do you think about the self-defense claim? What do you think about the motive evidence, financial or affair, lack of sex? You know, there's all these things. I mean, is that enough motive to want to kill? Do you think that there's any other piece of evidence that you've seen in this case that might be important that you think the jury will consider? So if you made it this far with us, wow, thank you. Because this went on a little longer than
and
we
if you
thought.
haven't already, like the
Yeah.
video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't
Please.
already. If you've made it this far, you've got to be a fan.
Yeah, please. Hi, Mom. Hi, Mom. Say hi. All right. So yeah, like, subscribe, please comment and share. We'll be back. We're going to try to do hopefully a live verdict if we can.
Let's hope for a live verdict.
Yeah, I
Let's
know.
hope we're not both in the middle of court when this verdict comes out, though. But the time change can be helpful.
The awesome part about being in Hawaii is that we're out of work by the time this stuff is actually almost even starting because it's 6 hours difference. So it's kind of nice. Well, in the sense that we are done with work and then we can just do this for longer. So anyway.
Yes, we could just leave work and then go home and watch trials.
Yeah.
We love it.
Honestly, it's like watching game tape, you know? It's like watching game tape. So,
Yep.
All right. Until next time. Thanks, everyone.